finally backed my very first winner for the Melbourne Cup, mate.
Wow, first winner on the money.
Yeah, first time. Back the winner.
It's worth celebrating.
It's the funniest story. So my wife comes in with the list of all the horses. You have to pick a horse so we can place a bet. I'm like, yeah, okay. We're still running from last year. And I'm just scanning through the names. And I was actually, just prior to that, I was just going through some of my invoices. And there's a couple of payments that I've got that are outstanding from a couple of clients I was chasing up. And there's this one that said Twilight Payment. And I'm like, pick that one. And that's how I picked the winner. Like, that's it.
Hunting advice from Starkey himself.
So to those dear clients of mine who are a little bit late on making that last payment, thank you so much. You allowed me to win $190 on the Melbourne Cup.
They're going straight on the Christmas card list.
Yeah, absolutely. Bottle of wine coming their way. Anyway,
wow.
So there you go, mate.
That is cool. That is cool.
Here we are, live, mate. Live everywhere. I believe we're live and rolling, and it's all just seems to be looking good. Yep, we are live, buddy.
We're live. Let's
do it. Let's get into it. Let's not waste a moment.
Let's explore some more beautiful moments of business and life. And actually, it's an interesting place to start. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, actually, and we were talking about the concept. Well, they raised it as the concept of work-life balance, and it was interesting. It was a really interesting conversation where we sort of took it to a place of, I'm of the thought that a work-life balance doesn't exist, because when I think of balance, I think of 50-50. I think of it being equal. When the word that comes to mind for me, and we've talked about this from a parenting point of view before, is blend, like a work-life blend. And I'm just curious, like I have a few questions around that for you, and just your what's your initial thoughts on that whole topic, because it is something that gets talked about a lot.
100%. I'm not a big fan of work-life balance, man, like as a concept or because I agree with you. Balance would be saying I spend this much time doing this and this much time doing that, therefore it's balanced. I look at it more like, to me, I'm looking for harmony or rhythm to my life. And like any great song, it has some good chorus and it's just a good beat, and then it has some crescendos, and it has, some epic moments, and then it has a key change. And to me, I think music is life in that sense. So I look for more harmony and rhythm to my life. If you look generationally, you could go back and say, so my parents, who are baby boomers, they were kind of the, work to live generation. And then theoretically, my generation, the Gen X's, we were the work-life balance generation. And then the generations coming are their work-life integration, if you want, right? So, and I've had this conversation with a lot of mature age people numerous times. And the funny thing is, if I go back into my own younger days, or even ask my dad, when he was growing up, did he just want to go and play soccer or football in the park instead of doing his apprenticeship? And he said, I would have loved to have, but I had to go to work. And I said, yeah. And there's things I wanted to do that when I was younger, but I needed to balance between work and life. And kids today, the younger generation today, here I am calling people kids like you, kid, are finding ways to integrate work and life. And some older generations are seeing that as, oh, look at these, they're lazy, they don't want to do anything. And I just think that's a bunch of crap. I just think that, your generation is going to persist and find a way to start just doing stuff that you love, when all of us other ones are more mature age generations have always wanted to do the same damn thing anyway. But you guys are just deciding to make it happen. So to me, that I think is, this whole, everyone's wanted work-life integration at some stage. Wouldn't it have been nice to just, the old cliche, do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. Well, that's a bit bogus. That's a bit bogus in its own right, because you'll still have, there's parts of the work that I do that I love, mate, but there's parts of it that are a bit of a grind. But in the big run, in the long run of it, I get to do everything I enjoy doing every day, and sometimes it's just a bit of a grind. And I get to do it when I want, where I want, with who I want. So is that work-life integration? Is that work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean, it potentially means something different to everyone. But you
Yeah.
mentioned there, it does seem to be a common theme, like within my generation, in that generation coming through the workforce, in terms of being aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs and just people in this generation seem to be more aware of trying to create that. And look, because like you said, I think that's a really good point. Like it's not like it hasn't ever been, or it's not like no one in the past or previous generations have not wanted that, like you said. But it's just
Yeah.
for some reason something shifted, and there's some more action being put into that now. It's just a part of how we're evolving. With that being said, though, do you see there, like in your work with different companies and businesses, do you see there being any challenges and barriers with that approach? Like, are there any, how would you put it, downsides, do you feel like, to that approach, and where we're moving with that as well? What's your thoughts around that?
Well, a couple of things. One, I don't see anything wrong with the approach of having a work-life integration if it fits with your the type of business that you're in. And, like, for example, a lot of businesses, let's say I'm using the apprentice trainees, and I've had this discussion with some organizations before, so it's real. If imagine you have young apprentices or trainees and the swell's up and they want to go surfing, and what do they do traditionally? They just go chuck a sickie and they don't come into work, and then we call that generation lazy. Or what if we said to the young people and said, like, hey, if you want to go hang 10 in the green room tomorrow, as long as you're in the office or at the site by 8:30, 9 o'clock or whatever, ready to go to work, take a couple hours in the morning and go. Because that person's just going to chuck a sickie anyway for the whole day, mate. They're just going to chuck a sickie. So if we just give them time and, like, find a way to, and then, hey, if we have to work back late on site to a little bit later for whatever, then that's fine. We could do that, right? So that's a possibility. One of the other challenges that we have in business is that we used to think in terms of company culture. And, I'm also the ambassador for the Global Company Culture Association. And I guess this is why they asked me to be the ambassador, because my philosophy on it is, it's not like I wake up, I do whatever I want, then I go to work, and then I have to worry about company culture in this space. Then I stop company stuff, and then I go home. Today, we're riding in on the trains or whatever. We're on our phones. We're answering emails. We're late at night. We're tapping away. And that was pre all this pandemic world. Now, even in this pandemic world, post-pandemic world, let's hope that we're in a world where distributed working is going to happen. Where, why couldn't we let somebody get up at 5 in the morning, work for 2 hours, then spend the first 2 hours from 7 till 9 with their kids in the morning, take them to school, do all that sort of stuff, let them do whatever it is that they need to do. If they want to go and attend a kid's school assembly, like if you want to go to your child's assembly at school or whatever, and then you work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then you decide to watch a bit of Netflix with your partner, who cares?
Yeah.
If the work's getting done, if we're measuring more on productivity and outcome rather than, hours that, it's the old cliche, it's about what you put into the hours, not the hours that you put in, right? And if we're measured more people on that, in a distributed working where it's feasible, because like in a coffee shop, you can't say if you need to be open from here to here and you need your barista, and the barista's like pump coffee at their house, they can't work from home, and so like there's certain roles, but there's a lot of businesses, mate, where we could be doing this from anywhere. And that company culture now is no longer just about company culture. It's, this is where the whole work-life integration, to wrap it back up, it has to come in, because whatever the company is offering you has to fit into your lifestyle and stuff like that, and the culture, because it's no longer just turn it off and turn it back on again.
Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like we have moved away from that clock in, clock out mentality in a lot of ways, just from talking to friends and family that are in different industries as well. It's definitely shifted in a big way. And it's interesting when you mention the different, like schedule of a day that you could run with if you are really looking after your people. And I find that to be a really awesome topic and an interesting topic, because then it shows a real sign of looking after one's people, like a company's people, instead of just being 100% focused on the results, on the on the productivity, like you said, well, not even just the productivity, but just focusing on the results and how it's been achieved in the past, being open to it being done differently. That could involve allowing something to be a little bit more flexible in terms of working hours and when that actually is, could pay off in a big way.
Mate, absolutely. We've got a comment here, Rob saying that the only way he can work is around the lives of his children. And how much more productive do you think people would be and more supportive of the organization if the organization actually cared about them? This takes you right back to my definition of leadership, which is all about helping other people become the best version of themselves so they can do their life's best work while they're in our care and beyond, which means I care about you as a human being first, employee second. And if you care about me as a human being first, you'll find ways to help me become more productive and do my life's best work in here. And if that means letting me do something at 5 a.m. or working from home half the day, or being home at 3 o'clock to be with my kids, but I'll start in the office at 7 or 6, this whole distributed working and work flexibility is something that has always been bandied around. Some organizations have already taken the lead in that, who do it very well. Some do it poorly. But I tell you what, in this world today, mate, with technology the way it is, the ability to do this is crazy. Because here's the thing, Shawnee, people are more worried about your absenteeism if you're not there. Well, I assure you in most organizations that presenteeism is far worse than absenteeism. Do you understand what presenteeism is?
I'd love for you to expand on that. I have some thoughts.
So presenteeism means that they're there, but they're not necessarily doing anything. This is the whole glorification of busy. You see people shuffling and moving papers around and doing stuff and looking busy, but they're not really achieving anything. Or they're pretending to do something and then they go walk off for somewhere for an hour and then they come back and you're like, oh. But just because they're physically in your office and you can see them does not mean they're being productive. And just because they're not in your office and you can't physically see them doesn't mean that they're not being productive.
It's where I find that Pareto Principle really interesting, the 80-20 rule. I feel like there's a lot of merit in that concept. I mean, I definitely resonate with that, and I resonate with Rob's comment there, and probably just on that, and thank you to anyone else who's watching as well. It'd be great to hear from people in terms of some examples that they have in their life, or that they've been a part of, or they've experienced, or who knows, that they've been in a leadership type role and they feel like they've really tried to push this notion of work-life integration. I'd love to know some examples from people as well. Like it'd be really interesting to learn about too, I think.
When I led the not-for-profit organization back up in Geraldton, I recruited a guy into the business, and he was working retail, and he had a lot of experience mentoring young kids and stuff like that, which was great, teenagers and whatnot, through his other pursuits in the cadets and everything. And when he came across this, because he didn't get to spend much time with his own young children because he worked retail Saturdays, Sundays, everything like that. So when he came across to work for us, work with us, I said to him, Dave, if you miss one school assembly or something to do with your kids, I'll fire you. This is like when we're talking about him accepting the role. There's a conversation, I don't even know if he would remember it, but the whole point of him leaving where he was to come into this place was to have that flexibility, the ability to, and because we care about him as a human being first, that we'll find ways. Like if you need to do some work early in the morning, or you need to work from home that day, or your kids are sick. I'd created the organization so it was totally mobilized anyway. We had offices, and you could come in when you needed to, and you could work from home. Our office manager, Chantel, she had a young baby, and I said, look, we'll set you up. We had everything was online, like our accounting software and everything like that. If you need to work from home because your young girl's sick, then that's fine. Stay home. You can still get as much done as you can get done. You don't need to take a sick day. You don't need to.
I want to acknowledge you for that, as a person, as a leader, because even though we're talking about being part of different generations, and even if my generation is more inclined in that way, there was still a split second there when you mentioned that statement that you made towards that new team member, there was still a little bit of there was still a part of me that was surprised that was like, whoa, like, which, and I'm not saying that's not common. I'm sure it is common out there, but it was still this little moment of, whoa, like that seems to be outside the norm still. And I know, I mean, that's a big part of what you're doing, which is so inspiring from a purpose-driven leader, because I think that's a massive component of it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that as well, because that was interesting.
Yeah, I had to warn people when they left our employment and they moved on to something else, which was always great, because they always wanted to, once again, help people become the best they can. And sometimes their life's best work that they needed to continue to do couldn't be done where we were doing it. But I had to always remind them, hey, just remember, when you go to work for somebody else or work in some other organization, your ability to walk up to me and talk to me and challenge me and all that, which the culture that we have here may not exist where you're going. So just be mindful that the leadership styles could be subtly different. Because I also didn't want to set them up for failure going into another organization. So, yeah.
With that in mind, this is off tangent, but it isn't, because it's come up while we're chatting. So with what you just said in mind about people being forewarned in some ways about when they do go to other organizations and other roles, your vision of 90 million purpose-driven leaders.
Yep.
What needs to take place, do you think, for you to be out of business? Like, what needs to take place for what you're doing, your passion, your purpose, for that to become obsolete? Because it's interesting, when even when I ask that, I get a little bit tense, because I'm like, well, you don't want anyone to be, that their business to be obsolete. But in saying that, it almost means that our world would be in a much greater place once that does happen.
No, absolutely. And I'll answer that just quickly. Buddy of mine, Ben, from up in Geraldton, he used to work with me back in my banking days. For a long time, we've talked about work-life balance. Him and his wife, I guess, has become a little cliched. I believe the notion of investing your time to be more accurate, whether investing time in your family or your business. Great comment there, Ben. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, it is an investment, and because it is a choice, right? And we've talked about, Shawnee, like time, energy, and money, the three resources you have, time being the only one that's finite. Okay, so to answer your question about I see a world where every business is led on purpose first. My goal is to create and inspire 90 million purpose-driven leaders around the world, and that number is just probably on the increase, because as more people enter the rising billions that are entering into the workforce and stuff. But I set a goal so big that I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And I think, to me, having a vision, and I've talked about this before, that you need to have a vision that's so big that you can't accomplish it on your own. I think, to me, that's my perspective on it. To make it really big, and that's what's inspiring to me, is we have to find a way to do this together. So what is it going to take for me to not have to have any work to do? But I don't foresee it happening before I pass away or move on from this world. However, what it's going to take is it's going to take a lot of us. It's going to take both, not only the organizations and the leaders and the people within it, but also the consumers to go, we no longer want to support organizations that treat their people like crap. We no longer want to support organizations that are just all about making money only. We're happy to pay for a service. We're tired of organizations lying to us or hiding behind the guise of doing something good in the world just to sell more to it. And sadly, I just don't see that happening. It'd be like the fastest way to get rid of tabloid magazines and all this trashy stuff that happens to them is for people to stop buying them. And then there's no demand, therefore there'll be no supply of it. And I know everyone needs to make money, and I understand profitability for business. I get all that, but I want to see people profit from their purpose, not profit in spite of their purpose. And so it's going to take a lot of work for people to be willing to do that. And leaders, it's going to take a lot of strength and character for leaders to do that. But I think, going full circle on our conversation, those who are looking for that work-life integration, your generation and the generations that will follow, I don't think they're as much about the money as they are about the lifestyle and doing really good stuff in the world. There's always going to be people who will be that way inclined, but it's about, making an impact. And instead of a lot of people at the latter end of their life going, hey, how do I make an impact now I've made all this money? People are going, how can I make an impact and possibly make money from it?
You know what, with that vision, and that's something I've definitely learned from you, is that a vision, for it to be, the essence of vision is that it's so high up in the clouds, that it is such a big dream that you potentially leave this lifetime still striving for it, which fills me up with excitement just when I think of that concept. With that being said, though, you know what, one thing is that I think is well within the grasp of what you are doing, which is so inspiring, and the people that are starting to come together within that purpose-driven movement as well, is that moment before, when I was surprised, when you recalled that moment talking to your new team member. I feel like that is getting closer and closer to not being a surprise anymore, which I think is pretty cool. Like, I think it's getting to a point where it doesn't feel as much as a shock as it has, and still does in a way. So I reckon that's pretty cool. And just acknowledging you for that, and credit to you for pushing in that way.
More role models, more people who are willing to, and I was having this conversation with a new client today, it's all about building organizational ecosystems, not egosystems, right? And where I'm the boss, you're my subordinate, you report to me, I'm the power, you're the information, and all this crap we need to get rid of, mate. We want to just say, like, if we can build this ecosystem of organization where we're nurturing new leaders, that where purpose lies at the center of everything we do. We've talked about the circle of organizational leadership. Can you imagine an organization structure where everybody answers to something first, not to someone, through the lens of our values? Like, it's not freaking complicated, let's face it. But it takes someone to let go of their ego to say, no, let's build an ecosystem where we're all accountable to this first, through the lens of those, and then my job is to coach and support you in that. And if we can get leaders to shift to that space, and imagine if we lifted everybody up and we helped them do their life's best work, and if we did performance leadership instead of performance management. I got lots of work to do, man.
Yeah, which is exciting though as well, I think, and that's something that I think it is already happening, what you were explaining there. I mean, that's why, for example, someone like myself is being drawn further and further into this, because I find it so fascinating being a part of that generation that is coming through, but also a side to me of acknowledging what has sort of led up to this point, and then being interested in how do we bridge that gap in terms of knowing, and it's interesting, this is a great segue in what I want to ask you next, but being able to know where we are right now, where we want to be, and then being able to coach and condition that gap. And that's something that I've definitely realized through our conversations, is that it doesn't happen overnight, and that is a common I'm not going to say misconception, it's a common perception of this generation that I'm coming through, is that we want things overnight, and my patience definitely could always use improvement, and I'm definitely working on that. But with that being said, with conditioning in mind, a topic that's come up for me lately, talking to some friends, some colleagues, is the first thing I think of with conditioning now from our conversations is values, and how our unique ways of thinking drives our behavior, and it's all interlinked and connected in a way that really drives the places that we work in, the places that we spend so much time in. And someone raised an interesting point, and I wanted to mention it in our chat as well, and that was, so a company, an organization can have a foundation of values, and they move towards that, they become aligned with that through conditioning, through coaching, however that may be. And I'm sure it's different in different cases, but on a personal level, those values could mean something different to every single person. So I know we've chatted before about not attacking the behavior and
Mm.
putting more emphasis on learning about the thinking that drives someone's behavior. And then I feel like there's a whole nother layer to that in the form of, okay, everyone can say, yep, I'm living these values, but the way that they're living it could be different from person to person as well, which I found really, really interesting.
Yeah, and like, mate, this is such a cool question. So kudos to you for digging into this one, because but it's so simple. So, and this is where a lot of organizations, they have their core values, the unique thinking of their business, which they should be, not the shit values, right? The service, honesty, integrity, trust ones. So organizationally, if you have those things that make you unique in the way you think about the problem that you're here to passionately solve in the world, your purpose. Well, with those values, they say, hey, we have them, but you need to be able to define those values, because it's saying, okay, if we had a company or organization and Circle Leadership, one of our values is simplicity. And I said, and you're saying, hey, I was living our value of simplicity, but your definition of simplicity was different to my definition of simplicity or Circle Leadership's, then we're not really living in alignment to the values. It's like there's a word, which is fine, but what do we mean by that? In 5 words or less, you should be able to describe to me what simplicity means. So when we say it means freedom from complexity, if we can look at what you're doing, saying, hang on, you can go through that lens now, go, we value simplicity here, and I've made this simple in my mind, but hang on, if I freed it from complexity, and you apply your thinking, what to think. Our values are there only tell us how to think. So here's how we think around here. Did you do that? And then you'll go, here's the things that I did. So how I think determines how I act. And then I'll talk to you about it. And you go, hey, Dave, this is what we're working on. And I looked at this and I challenged that. And because, we really want to find ways to free this up from complexity. And so now I know where your thinking is. I know the thinking that we want to have. And my job, if I need to, is coach the gap. Or I'll say, hey, mate, that was awesome. By the way, have you thought about this, or this? And I can coach you. Because then we have a shared value in terms of not only the value itself, but the definition of the value. Because our values there tell us how to think, not what to think. You're still going to filter that through your own experience, all your synapses firing it whatever way you choose to have had them conditioned to fire and stuff like that. And all we have to do is make sure that your definition, your own personal definition of simplicity, doesn't reject at the organization's definition of simplicity.
So as long as it's helping the organization move towards that vision that's in place, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
The rest is coaching.
Well, talking about coaching, and you started to give some examples there about asking questions in that sort of situation. I want to throw an idea at you, and I'm just looking at the time, so this might be something that we can expand on next week as well. But with any value, like I look at different companies, the ones that I've been a part of, the more time I spend with you, the more I look into other companies as well. And I feel like it's quite common for a value to be paired with a statement, like a statement that might underpin it. And I've been playing around with this idea for the past week now, and I wanted to throw it your way to get your thoughts on. With a statement, to me, it is strong, it is bold, and can be quite powerful. But you know what I think is even more powerful? Imagine being able to pair that value with a powerful question, with an epic question that underpins that value, that whenever the values are referenced or talked about, there's this question that goes with it that has been developed to pull people into that value, into that state that they can really live that value. Because a part of me thinks about a statement being paired with a value and it potentially sending a signal of this is a finished product, this is at its peak. Whereas to me, a question opens up more opportunity for an infinite amount of evolution.
Absolutely love it. And this is why, once again, if you have the definitions of your values right, and you can define them, you can just turn those into a question, piece of cake. I'm just going to bring up one here. So certainly, even like simplicity for Circle Leadership, right? So you could just guess, we value simplicity. The question that goes with that is this freed up, or have we done anything to free this up from complexity?
Yeah.
Right. So a really cool one here is, one of our clients, Optimize Online, right? So Callum and Nick and the guys over at Optimize handle all our social media and stuff for our circle leadership. One of their values is challenge. So, right, they value challenging, and it is questions to incite critical thinking. So you can take that exact same value and go, hang on, if we truly valued challenging here, what questioning have you done to incite critical thinking?
Yeah.
And mate, what you're exactly talking about there, that's the coaching part of the process. So the coach, in this case, the leader, should be going, if you, even just using, once again, simplicity, and you're talking about something, mate, so talk to me about how you freed this up from complexity. What was it like before? What does it look like now? What have you done?
Yeah, how can we simplify this even more?
Yeah, and then that'd be the next question.
Possible?
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Do you think it's, is there something we missed? Is there another way we could simplify this, or are there parts of it that we could simplify? But that's the coaching part. When I talk about coaching the gap in terms of the thinking, that's the leader's job, is to ask that, just because the deeper and richer the understanding and the ownership of that value and its application and the thinking that it drives, it's only going to help you behave more and more in alignment with it and get to stage. My job is to help you understand how to think around here, because I'm actually, and this was the funny thing, Duncan Wardle had a post up the other day, and I commented on it, and I was saying that, it used to be the days where you were paid to work, not to think. I'm paying you to work, not to think. And now I joke with people, I said, you're paid to think, and if you're here and you get some work done, that'd be awesome.
I love that.
Right, but that's, like, mate, and this is why, from a leadership point of view, the best thing you can do to shift cultures is stop telling people what to do, telling people the answers, or telling them where to find the answers, and start questioning them. Question. I have this, and I think I put the post up a little while ago about love, live, and lead your values, and I was talking about that in that video. Is that you got to start questioning people about these things, and so what you're raising there is exactly why we need to do it. And you should, if your values are defined correctly, you should be able to turn any one of them into a question, mate.
Yeah, and I think that's where, I definitely see so much value in the coaching aspect of the systems that you've taught me so far as well. And I suppose that I think I was just, thinking in a way of trying to go one step further from a self-coaching point of view. If there was that question that was also crystallized with that statement, or like you said, being able to easily flip that, it could, who knows, you could see an even bigger spike in initiative and innovation, I feel like, because there's potentially something there that they're able to ask themselves before they even come to you, which to me, could see some changes again. But
right. I'll leave you with this thought then into that, because you just raised one of the most important points. You're so intuitive, mate. I mean that sincerely. If you want to have an organization where you have innovation thriving, right? So innovation is happening in your organization, then you need people to be creative. Okay. The key to creativity in your organization is freedom to think. So people need to be free to think. We need to free our people up to be thinking, and they'll find the creativity will come out, because they'll find the solutions in innovative ways. And a lot of innovation in organizations, we're always looking, and this is part of Duncan's post, we're like looking outside for the latest and greatest innovations, and it doesn't have to cost. Well, most innovations, the best ones, shouldn't cost you much at all, because they're all come from inside your organization, right? Within, innovate, change or do something different from within. In order to do that, we need our people to be free to think. And this is why the values are so important. And this is why turning those values, to your point, into an epic question is me saying, I'm giving you freedom to think.
Yeah, in your own way. Because there's going to be times when I'm not going to be there to prod you and prompt you. So that autonomous nature. I love that. I've written that down. I reckon a few other people might be, if they're watching too. The key to creativity is the freedom to think. I think that's an epic note to finish on.
Right? And freedom to think, though, the price for freedom to think is responsibility. People need to be able to take responsibility of the work that they're doing. In order to do that, we need to be able to trust our people. The only way to do that is to build a system of shared values. It's that simple. This is how it all comes back to values. So the more I can coach you, and then we're having dialogue conversation, the more I can trust you because you're being more empowered and making smarter decisions, and I can see your filth, and therefore you can take more responsibility. Then you can be free to think and be more creative and find innovative solutions to help us move forward and serve our clients at the best, because our clients deserve us at our best.
This is so much fun, honestly.
Yeah. I'm loving it. It's great. You asked such great questions.
I'm looking forward to oh man, every time I get more and more that flow through these conversations. That I reckon, and that's what I love in any sort of relationship, like life and business, is that whether it's challenging each other or empowering each other to be able to ask more questions. I was thinking about that. I know we're going to wrap up, but the other day from a parenting point of view, I was thinking like 20, 30 years ahead, like what would I love for Oscar to feel, or something that I potentially instilled on him. And I just come up with just the freedom to feel like they could be themselves. They could be themselves in their own skin. They felt psychologically safe to be themselves, whoever and whatever that may be. And yeah, I feel like we've talked about this before and we'll talk about it again. I feel like there's so many correlations between that parent-child world and that leader person, that leader employee world too. And I think there's more to be explored there, definitely.
100%, but mate, that's the best conditioning influence you could ever have on Oscar, and your next one on the way, mate, is to instill that confidence that it's okay to be who you are. And I told you this, and we'll wrap up on this. My kids were growing up, whether they remember it much or not, but I was always reminding them that you were made different to make a difference. Right? Yeah. When they're always like, I want to be normal, Dad. Why can't I just be like all the other kids? I'm like, you know what? You were made different to make a difference. And that's not just my kids, any kid. I think, allowing the child to find their uniqueness. And the same with our employees. Every single employee in our organization, our team members, everyone has a unique talent and ability. We need to find ways to unleash that in our business.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And this gets us all the way back to how do we create more purpose-driven organizations, and how do we see that world ever happening, is by allowing it to happen and not being afraid of it. Yeah.
It's there, isn't it? It's definitely there already, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, we best wrap up. Here's a question. I'm going to challenge you now. I'm going to give you a question to research and prepare yourself for next week.
Please.
If you could only choose one of the 4 tools that any leader has available to them, your purpose, your values, your vision, your mission, all right, to lead your team with, which one would you choose and why?
Such a good question. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great question because it's something that's a hot topic at the moment in a couple of places that I'm spending some time in. Great question. Yep. Let's do it. Okay. This time next week.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong answers here. It's your what you think and why. That's all I'm interested in.
Yeah, it comes back to the values again, for sure.
Okay. I just want to know what you think. All right, brother. Thanks, Ben. We'll catch you later. Everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Rob, Ben. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you same marvelous time next week. I was going to say same bad time, same bad channel, but that's the other guys.
Yeah, come on. We're not affiliated with them.
Although, but hey, it takes the whole world, it takes all types to make the world go round. Anyway, catch you later. See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.